Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who is here every week, those that share this program, those that send me feedback, and I am so blessed and grateful to all of you for being here and supporting this show. I would like you to do me a favor, though. Every single time you see this, whether it's this show tonight or any other night, please share because we have to spread good news out to people. We need to spread good energy out there, one way or another. And somebody may heal by the experiences of my uh, guests. And with that being said, tonight we have a wonderful soul, Karen Holton, who is here and is going to tell us all about herself. And please remember all of her links and information is going to be in the description. So if you don't catch it right away, you can always refer to the description and follow her there. Hi, Karen. How are you doing?
I'm good, Glenda. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's a real honor.
Thank you for your being here. The honor is mine. Honor is mine. So tell us about yourself.
Oh, wow. Okay, let's start with the truth. I'm a really ordinary person. I am nothing special. I don't have anything really to brag about. I just happen to have had a life full of very strange experiences. And it wasn't until quite recently I realized that, again, I'm pretty ordinary because there's lots of us having these experiences. In fact, I've come to believe that it's our birthright to have paranormal experiences, that we are a special kind of technology that we're able to do this. And so I'm hoping by sharing my experiences with your audience that I'll give them the courage to validate their own experiences and develop their own abilities and to have some similar things happen for them because, well, personally, it's made my life a whole lot more fun.
So tell us a little bit of those experiences.
Okay, so let's start with one of my earliest memories that was weird. And that was when I was about maybe 4 years old, maybe five. I was terrified of the dark. You see, I was aware that that I was surrounded by beings and creatures and things that other people couldn't sense and didn't see. And I did see them and I did know they were there. Well, I didn't see them physically with my eyes, but I saw them in my mind's eye. And, there was no one to talk to about it. There was no support, not to mention that as I grew up, as a child, as I was growing, I was never given concepts to create a framework around what I was experiencing. I was never given language to describe what I was going through. So I wasn't really even able to share my experiences. And I didn't really know what was going on. They just happened. So as I mentioned, I'm about 4 or 5 years old and I'm terrified of the dark. And I couldn't sleep because I would tuck myself so far under my covers, make sure not a toe stuck out, not a finger stuck out, not a hair, not my head, nothing. And I couldn't breathe. And it was really awful and didn't help the situation. Well, one day, I'm just going to show you a few images from my book. So one day, this beautiful creature appeared to me. This is an AI generated. Obviously, I couldn't go back in time and get a shot of the being. But I didn't find out until I was in my 20s when I was looking at a book that was about fantasy creatures and myths and legends and stuff. It was a griffin. So it had the head and the wings of an eagle, and it had the body of a lion, except my griffin was all made up of flames. And it was majestic. And I don't know, looking back, whether I was seeing it in my mind's eye or with my physical senses. I don't know if it was a screen memory. Like, I don't have an explanation. All I know is it brought me comfort, and it let me know that that it would protect me, that it was safe for me to go to sleep. And anytime I was afraid, all I had to do was, in my mind, think of it, and boom, it would be there and it would protect me. And so after that, I was able to sleep at night. So that was a wonderful, wonderful experience. I also had another experience around the same time. This may sound a bit like too much information, but it's how it happened. I was basically just sitting on the toilet, and the place we were living in had these large black and white checkerboard tiles on the floor. And so I'm just sitting there doing my business, and I happened to notice that at the edge where the floor hit met the wall, that there was like a little anomaly. There was some movement, and I thought, that's really strange. And I sort of leaned forward and I just started watching it. Well, pretty soon this escalated, so it looked like the floor had waves, rolling waves. And I was like, wow, fascinated. I wasn't scared. I was just fascinated. And but then when the waves got too big, I started getting scared, and at that moment it dropped flat again, and that was the end of that. I have no reason like to give you. I don't know if it was a sign, if it was a real thing, if I was hallucinating as a child. Like, I have no idea. So that's kind of how things started for me later on, when I was about 5 or 6, maybe 7 at the most. I had 2 brothers, and they were always kind of not wanting to play with me because I was a girl, right? That kind of family stuff. And my brother went and locked me in the closet so I couldn't play with them. And I really wanted to see what they were doing. I wasn't scared of the closet. I just wanted to see what they were doing. And all of a sudden, I could see what they were doing. Clearly, it was in my mind's eye, but I didn't really think of it as being this way or that way. I just was laughing because I was able to see what they were doing, and I was feeling like, ha ha, I see you, right? And eventually, when my brother let me out, probably, maybe 15, 20 minutes later, it wasn't too long, I told him that I could see everything he was doing. And he's going, yeah, well, what were we doing? And I told him, and he just made fun of me and made fun of me. And every time I went to try to talk to my mom about it, she would say, stop that. She'd get really mad. She'd say, stop that. Don't talk like that. People are going to think you're crazy, and we don't want that. So you must never talk about these things. That's not real. You have an overactive imagination. And that was all I ever got. Now, when I was about maybe 7, 8, 9, I started just walking to churches that were in my area. I was aware of my spiritual need. I didn't really understand, the dynamics of religion or anything like that. It just seemed like I was told that God was there, and I figured, boy, if anyone needs help, it's me. There's a whole bunch of other stuff I'm not going to get into. I go into it a little bit in my book. But not too much, because quite frankly, my life as a child was a little bit disturbing, and there's no point in there's no real purpose in sharing too much of that.
Right.
Beyond the fact that I think that the disturbing aspects of my childhood actually helped me to become more, and I'll use this term very loosely, but psychic and psionic.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I started going to churches, and I started telling people about some of the things I was experiencing. And oh my gosh, don't ever do that. That's the devil. Those are demons. You're going to ruin your whole life. So here, great. I mean, even as a child, I figured it out. I had a choice of either being crazy or being wicked. And I was neither. I was a child. Just trying to make sense of this strange reality. And so that wasn't very good. It really terrified me to think that I was opening the door for demons and stuff. And I actually checked out and joined several different very fundamentalist religions, because I somehow thought that might protect me. and I tried to shut down my experiences as much as I could. And then later, I started to think I was crazy because other people weren't having these experiences. Why was I? Was I
Mm.
imagining it? Was I a crazy person? Oh my God, I didn't want to be a crazy person. And I didn't want to be a wicked person. I was
Yes.
actually a good person right from the get go. I love to be out and watch the bees and the neighbor cats and dogs. In those days, all the animals ran free.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved flowers and caterpillars. And I even used to pick up caterpillars, I remember, on my way to kindergarten and put them in my pocket, thinking I was saving them. And then during kindergarten, they'd all crawl out and be all over. And the teacher said, who brought the caterpillar? I said, me, I'm saving them. So that was my nature. My nature was not,
Right.
considering what my life was like at home, my nature was very good, very pleasant. I'm pretty proud of the way I was, and
Mm-hmm.
try to maintain that. So those are some of the really early experiences. Do you want to hear about a few that happened a little bit later?
Oh, of course. Of course.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to just stick to my young childhood. Okay. So later on,
Mm-hmm.
when I was uh, an adult, I had several strange things happen. One of them was I was on Vancouver Island. I'm Canadian. I was on Vancouver Island, and I was at a place called Stodom Falls, and they have these very shallow rivers and a lot of shale and flat rocks. It's a beautiful place just to go and get some sun. And I was lying on this big flat rock looking up, just loving the sun. I love the way it feels on my skin, and I saw a bald eagle, and it was way up there going around and round and round like they do. And all I did was have the desire to see things from the eagle's perspective. And boom, in a flash, I was seeing what the eagle was seeing. I could see way down below me, little tiny on the rock. There was me. There was the forest, the rivers, the logging roads. It was all beneath me. It only lasted for a few seconds. I was like shocked, and then boom, I was back down on the rock, and I went, oh my God, I didn't even know this was possible. Well, since then, pretty much every summer, at least once, I do that because I just want to see if I can still do it. And I can. It's quite lovely. And I had no language for it, no concepts for it. I just was very, very grateful for the experience. And another thing that happened that was really similar a few years later, I was in my room in an apartment I was renting, and I had a cat, and my cat was chasing something under the bed. And it was nighttime, so it was pretty dark, but not completely pitch black. And I wanted to see what my cat was seeing. And all I did was express within the desire, wonder what kitty is chasing. Boom, I could see through the eyes of my cat. And what shocked me was not just the fact that I could see what the cat was seeing. Well, apparently, cat's eyes, they have a reflective surface, so they reflect light outwards like little flashlights.
Right.
And what I didn't know is that spiders have these spots and stripes on them, especially the big ones. That make it, they become very luminous when the light is reflected off of them. I never knew that happened,
Mm.
that there was a dynamic like that even. And so I just started laughing, and boom, I was back in me again. And I went, oh my gosh, like I didn't have language for any of that, like consciousness transfer or
Right.
anything like that in those days. I was just like shocked. So
Mm-hmm.
what I want to say about my gifts is it's not something I can just turn on and turn off. Sometimes I can, but mostly it's just expressing the childlike wonder and the desire to see things from these different perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was pretty lovely. And then later on, I ended up. Oh, I feel so bad about this, but I'm going to tell you the truth. Okay, so I had an extraterrestrial being making contact with me within my my imagination. I believe our imaginations are portals.
Right.
And he was trying to make communication with me, and this went on for like over a year. And I thought it was the crazy part of me doing it, that I was imagining it, and it was interfering, because it kept happening. And I just, not really interfering, but kind of didn't know what to do with it, didn't know what it was, never heard of this before. I started making fun of him, and then he left and didn't come back until a few years later, when I had my extraterrestrial aboard the big ship experience. Well, it was actually just before that. And then I realized he was a real being. So I was going to show you another image.
Yes.
Again, this is AI generated. It's in my book. So I call him Bob the Gray. Now, I have no idea what his real name is. That is not his real name. But, these higher beings, they're not all weird about politics around identity. They don't have any of that, right? And so I called him Bob. And he was so cute because he knew, in my heart of hearts, I was kind of terrified of the stereotypical grays. And I don't even know how or why or where I even got that from. But I had that from early adulthood. And so he would always show up wearing black, straight leg, kind of what we used to call stovepipe leg pants, a black turtleneck sweater, and a black fedora. And he always made me laugh. So that's one thing that I want to say is, first of all, there's many different races and groupings and types of grays, but also that many of them actually have a sense of humor. And it's not meant to be terrifying, although I validate other people's experiences who might have been terrified. That wasn't like that for me with Bob. But then I actually missed another really important experience. Do you want me to tell you about it before I get into my ET stuff?
Please.
Okay, so I had a really, really bad experience as a young adult. I had 2 children. I had been married. My husband and I were split up. He had remarried. He had convinced me to let the kids go and live with him, that somehow it was hard on doing them harm, not having enough contact with him. I felt, well, a child can never have too much love. And I thought, well, I will let them go and stay with their dad, and it might be really good for them. Unfortunately, then I found out that he and his wife didn't want me having any contact with them at all, ever in their childhood. And I was devastated. And I fell into this really low state, vibrational state, where I was really grieving. Oh my God, it tore my heart out that my kids were gone. You should have seen me on the first day of school. I was a mess because I had no little kids to take to school. Like, it was bad. And all of a sudden, I started getting this urge to kill myself. I'll use the word off myself. Hopefully it's kinder to the algorithms out there. And in a very peculiar way. And I want to skip forward a little bit just to give you more context. 2 years later, I met a woman, and she was asking me where I lived, and I told her, and she said, "Oh my God, do you know what happened in that little house?" And I said, "Well, no." She says, "I'm friends with the mother of the man who offed himself, and this is how he did it." And it was exactly what had happened for me 2 years earlier. So what I'm thinking, and the lesson here, I think, for everybody, is we match up vibrationally to what we are and how we're experiencing life. And I had fallen into this deep state of grieving that I somehow tapped into. This is my opinion, I have no proof, but that I tapped into this low vibrational state or impression that was left by the man who had lived there before me. Okay. So now going back to when I was having the urge to off myself, it was the middle of the night. I was going to do it the next day. And all of a sudden, I had what I call an overlay. An overlay is when we see something with our imagination, but we're fully awake, our eyes are open, and it's so strong that it is a more real image than what you're seeing out of your physical eyes.
Right.
And I saw all these points of light, and from these points of light, there was light flashing out the sides, giving them the illusion of wings. So in my interpretation, I was seeing angels or an angel. I don't know. It depends, I guess, on how they want to be seen. But I could hear a voice, and the voice was like 1,000 voices all speaking in perfect harmony, perfect unison. And whatever it was questioning me on why I wanted to leave my earth experience. And I said, because it sucks. It absolutely sucks. I did not sign up for all of this. I deserve to have a good life. I deserve to have better than what I've been experiencing. I need my children with me. And I'm just really having a hard time coping. And this is interesting. They basically told me that all of us humans have exit points. See, we think when we die, that's the end of it. Not at all. In fact, there's a much more beautiful life we can have after we leave this physical 3D dimension. But they said that, there's exit points, and that it never gets held against us. So like in church, they teach, one of the most horrible sins is to commit suicide, because then you can't get into heaven and all this jazz. Well, no, the angelic realms, these beings told me, no, that's not true. You can go whenever you want. They said, but if you want to stay, we'll give you a helper. And I was overwhelmed. First of all, I was overwhelmed because of all this grief and this plan I had. I was overwhelmed because I was seeing what I interpreted as angels. I never heard of anything like this. I mean, you hear about, angels appearing to Mary and being a messenger, but I never experienced heard anything like this ever. So I just said, well, what do you mean? What kind of a gift? And they said, that's for you to decide. And when you're ready, you let us know. And I says, well, I need time to think about this. I need time to think about this. This is just, wow. And they said, okay, when you're ready, you let us know. And apparently they're all around us all the time. There's no secrets. There's no hiding anything. We may as well just accept that they're there, in the spiritual realms, I'm guessing, maybe even in our realms. I don't know. I'm not an expert on any of this. I'm pretty ordinary, guys. So I said, let me think about it. And then obviously I didn't do it. Then the next day I started going for these long walks, thinking, this is really important. I have to choose well. I have to choose well. What do I want? What would help me? And I thought, money. Whoa, a whole bunch of money would help. I could hire a lawyer. I could get my kids back. I could give them a wonderful life. I could have a more comfortable life. I thought, oh, wow. And then I went, no, it's not it. I know that's not it. I know that's a trap. So then I thought, well, maybe if I was really beautiful or really popular, or I had a lot of friends, maybe that would work better. And then I went, no, that's not it. That's not it. And I started thinking about everything. And eventually I knew what I needed. It's going to make me cry. What I needed was wisdom, because if I had wisdom, I could make my life work. I could be a blessing. I would know how to get my kids back. I'd be able to fix things. Like, I knew it. I knew wisdom was what I needed. So that's what I asked for. I asked for wisdom. And then the weirdest thing happened. Like, I mean, truth is stranger than fiction, really. I couldn't make this stuff up. But then I heard a voice, and it said to me, Karen, do you want the quick method or the slow method? And I should have given it more thought, and I did not. And I said, I want the quick method. Now, I thought in my naivety, they were just going to pour this wisdom into me, and my whole life was going to become magical. Honestly, that's what I thought. I said, I want the quick method. And that was the end. I never heard from them again. I've never seen them. I've never had any experiences like that ever again. And then what happened is my life actually went to SHIT. There was all kinds of problems. But what was different was my perspective. I was able to see everything through a different perspective. And I was able to make choices in the now that affected my tomorrow and made my tomorrows better.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the really interesting point, even to the point of having life-threatening illness, being in the hospital for over 5 weeks, hooked up to all these machines. I won't get into the juicy details, but it was pretty awful. And that was when I went, okay, Karen, either these new ideas that you have and inklings that you have and spiritual beliefs that you have, they're either real or they're BS. If they're real, you better bring it inside to you to carry with you if you're going to survive. And that's what I did. So I don't have to go to church. I'm not saying anything against religion. If people got religion, it's doing it for them, great. But for me, I had to move all of that inside and make it real for me. And that's what I did. And that's how I was able to survive all kinds of things. And the long story short, too, is that 6 months after my angelic experience, I had my kids back and we were a family again. And it was awesome how it happened. So there's that. And then, of course, Bob the Gray. And Bob the Gray really helped me with my whole awakening process.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I see it, there's a difference between awakening and ascension. For me, the way I experienced it, awakening was realizing the world is not what we were taught. It is something completely different. And so every time I'd reach a new layer, and that even includes today, a new layer of awakening to what's going on around me, there's a lot of shock and awe, and I'm thrown off balance, and I have to process another damn layer of the onion. And I have to get to the point where I don't have to like it, but I can see it for what it is.
Right.
And I can choose to be how I want to be, which basically is to become the change I want to see in the world. And that was my awakening. And it wasn't until I had done significant layers of that I then started to experience what I call the ascension. And what I call the ascension is just the raising of our resonant frequency. Every cell in our body has a frequency. Each one of us has our own unique frequency. I needed to raise my frequency for two reasons. One was so that I could learn more and experience aspects of life I didn't know were possible, but also I had to raise my frequency, because what happens is we're interacting with other people, other beings, other things all the time, and we will only be met with where we're at with our frequency. So, if we're tired of being around psychopaths and demons and all that kind of stuff, we need to raise our frequency so they can't touch us. They can't come into our field. Right. And where I can go within my field is ever so exciting. And that led to my extraterrestrial experience. But I'm just going to stop and see if you have any questions for me, or if you want me to clarify anything I skipped over a little too fast or whatever.
No, you're explaining things beautifully. And yes, that was an angelic and being. They call themselves a being, but they're many voices. They're united. So that's why you heard one voice, but resonating with many.
Yeah.
And yes, we do have exit points. But the only thing with that is that if we exit too quickly, we got to come back and do this all over again. And I don't know about you, but I am not planning to keep repeating this.
No.
Really.
Me neither.
It's been real. Had a lot of fun. Let me just finish this time period, and then that's it.
I believe it's for soul evolution, and I want to do a good job while I'm here, so I don't have to come back and repeat the crap again.
Yeah.
And I believe when I die, I'm going to be aboard the big ship, and I'm going to live there with my extraterrestrial friends, because they're amazing. And so do you want to hear about that, or am I interrupting you? Sometimes I can't tell.
Please,
okay.
I love it.
So again, I didn't do anything special. I'm not a special kind of person. I can't even explain how it happened or why it happened. I have ideas. This happened in about 2014. I had been receiving some downloads to create a lifestyle program that I could then use myself to heal. and to recover, but also to share with other people. But that's another kind of story. So all of a sudden, so this is, I want to clarify that at the time I was not using any psychedelics, no cannabis, even no mushrooms, no ayahuasca, no nothing like that. In fact, I wasn't even drinking coffee. Like, I was real clean because I was trying to improve my health, because I had been through a lot physically and I wanted my health. Because when you don't have your health, you realize you could be a bloody millionaire and it wouldn't make any difference. You're stuck in bed and you can't get out.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I know you know what I'm saying, but I'm just saying to the audience, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, I was really on a pure diet and everything, and that took some getting to. That didn't just happen overnight, and that wasn't easy. Anyway, so I went to bed one night, and I had the most fabulous, what I thought was a dream. I was aboard what I call the big ship. And the big ship's massive, so it holds millions of souls. There are many, many souls who do not even live on planets. They love living in these spaces. I'll just call them spaces, and I'll explain what I mean as I go along. They're born there. They live their whole lives there. They love it. They got jobs to do, and they got community and family and everything they would ever need. Plus, it's a lot safer because, you know, on planets, you got wild animals, and you got sun flares, solar flares, and you got earthquakes and volcanoes. You know what I'm saying? A huge list, right? And so anyway, so I met these beings. I went through an orientation process. There was no one scary. So the first thing people want to know is, what did they look like? What did they look like? They look very much like us. Most are taller, wider frames, wider hands, wider feet, all beautiful with symmetric faces. Some have hair, some have less hair, some don't have any hair. You know, there's diversity the way we would see here on Earth. So even here on Earth, you can have a family, say 5 kids from the same mom and the same dad. Each kid looks different. One's got dopey ears like the uncle. Another one, you know, has got brown eyes, and one has blue eyes. There's diversity. There's diversity. The thing we have in common here on Earth is we're part of the human race. We're all part of one race from one species. What I discovered about my extraterrestrial friends is they're also from the same species as us. They're just different family lines or races. And they come from different worlds and even different dimensions. So I guess, so I wanted to say that there's a few peculiar characteristics some of them have, but basically think about us at our next stage of development. Once we've stopped our warring ways, once we've stopped our greed and our lust for money and sex and power, once we're able to throw off the shackles of all that stuff, and we start to realize that we have to vibe on what I call the love harmonic. And we don't even know what love is on this planet, not really. So love is not just a warm affection for somebody else. Love includes patience and kindness and mildness and self-control and faith and all kinds of wonderful attributes. So think of love as being this beautiful basket full of fruit, and each fruit, actually the Bible does call it the fruit of the Spirit, all these beautiful fruits. And we need to manage these and learn to exercise them. And it's a bit like juggling, and you're not very good at it at first. You're trying to be patient. I mean, try to be patient with yourself, never mind other people, for one day. It's a big job. So, I mean, spiritual evolution really takes a significant amount of energy and work to be able to pull it off. Well, these beings have mastered it, and they've not only mastered it, they've mastered it thousands of years ago. And so their offspring and their offspring's offspring and all of that, they've been able to put together a cohesive culture that is so amazing and so beautiful. And what I want to say about this is it's a transdimensional space. I'm just going to show people the cover of my book, if that's okay. It's called Transdimensional, Meet the New Neighbors. This is the author copy. When you buy it, it won't have this band across it. So the big ship, where is the big ship? Is it in our solar system? Is it in our galaxy? Where the heck is this thing? Well, it's in not in any of those places, and it's in all of those places. So I want you to just use your imagination for a minute and imagine what we call a Venn diagram. A Venn diagram is things that seem to be separate, but there's little places where they overlap. So imagine a Venn diagram that looks very much like a daisy with, say, 100 petals on it. Each petal represents a different dimensional reality, a position within the spiritual realms, a different timeline, a different position within the multiverse. Like we're talking diversity on steroids here. All of those things connect at the center of the daisy. Well, that's interdimensional space, and that's where the big ship sits. It's in an interdimensional envelope, and beings can come aboard, experience physicality and or non-physicality. I have gone there physically, I've gone there with consciousness, and I've also gone there through what you would all consider astral projection, depending on why I'm there. So I do ongoing work since then, and even before, and even today, that I call the exopolitical ambassador work. Then I go in my sleep through like astral projection or out of body experience. I go to the big ship and I take part in these amazing exopolitical meetings where they want to know what's going on Earth, how I see it, how I experience, how I think it's affecting others. Apparently, there's millions of us that are doing this in our dream time. This is not just unique to Karen. Okay, so there's that aspect. But now I'm going to talk about being there physically. So when I first went there physically, I had to do, well, I didn't have to, but I was asked to do, and I complied, a walkthrough through this huge, kind of like a tunnel, about 7 feet high, that I just walked through. And they had scanning technology, so they're able to scan everything about me, my genetics, my psychology, my talents, my learning, the ways that I learn best, everything, even past life imprints that we have from former traumas and things. And that way they're able to know how best to serve me. So this what I call the big ship, it's very much sort of a first contact point for many beings, so they can go through orientation, and they can learn telepathy if they're from a speaking world like I am. And so that was one of the first things I had to learn was telepathy. It was actually a big job. I go into it in detail in my book, and I talk about the 4 stages of telepathy and how I learned that. But basically, I was with my buddy. She was beautiful. She's like 6'5", or excuse me, give or take. And she's beautiful. She had like pale teal colored skin, but besides that, she looked very much like us, except taller, narrow feet for how long they were. I was kind of surprised, but she was beautiful. And she showed me around. She showed me my quarters. She showed me everything. And I was able to communicate with her. Basically, I was able to get inklings of the information that she was trying to ask me or give to me. I was a long way from proficient at telepathy at that point, but I was able to see little images, like short little videos in my mind's eye of what she wanted or what she needed to know. And I got to tell you a little bit about the big ship. It is a live being of itself. So it uses telepathy to communicate with those of us who are on board. It's a beautiful soul of its own kind. And everything within the big ship that we could possibly need, the big ship just knows, because it can pick that up. And everything is like, I call it self-assembling nano biotechnology. So it's the ship, but it will produce what we need. But to us, like for me, coming from Earth and 3D, It looked like magic, but it wasn't. It was technical and definitely science driven for sure.
Right.
And so anyway, like for instance, when she showed me my quarters, I knew she wanted me to show her how I sleep at night. And I just imagined being in my bed. And then she would just motion to the wall and a platform would come up and a beautiful kind of a futon would just form with some blankets and pillows. And she just motioned for me to try it out. And I laid down and she could tell by the way my body just instantly relaxed. It was just perfect. So this is how I started off with communicating with her. And I was worried because I had a kitty at home and nobody knew I was gone. And I wanted her to know that. So I started feeling anxious and she just touched my arm and I knew that she wanted to know. So I started just imagining and speaking out loud, which I was still doing. What about my kitty? Nobody knows that I'm gone. Who's going to feed her? Who's going to look after her? And she just stroked my arm a little bit and had a very calming effect on me. And she let me know that I was going to be back home the very next morning. And at first I didn't really understand, but I decided to go with it. And I get into all the details about my orientation in my book. But then I woke up and here I was in my own little bed. It was the very next morning. I had only been gone our Earth time. I had only been gone one night, but it felt like I had been gone for probably about a week or a week and a half. So there's a time dilation. So when I'm there, I'm not here. When I'm here, I'm not there, but the time is completely different. So this went on every night for 3 months of our Earth time. And at first I thought I was dreaming. I thought, wow, what did I do? Maybe this new careful diet and getting off junk food is really working for me. What is going on here, right? And then after that, I realized, no, I wasn't dreaming because it was congruent. When I went to sleep at night, I fell asleep instantly. And I went back to where I had left off the night, that morning there.
Right.
So you can imagine it was a bit of a mind thing because I would wake up in the morning, I'd make a cup of tea, I'd feed my cat, and I'd go, what the hell just happened? I had no explanation, right? And I had no choice because it just happened every night.
Right.
Excuse me. So after that, I just went with it. I had faith that I would be home when the time was right. I could be gone for weeks. I could be gone for months, having all this adventure, wake up in the morning, and then I had to sort of process what I had experienced. And then actually for a while, I thought I might be crazy. I honestly thought I might be hallucinating the whole thing. And I went, wow, well, whatever it is, I'm sure good at it. And but I have to tell you, there is a downside to this, and that is that it really affected me on a social level. I couldn't handle being around people anymore. I had to spend my days alone. And it actually took me years after that 3-month period was over. It ended as abruptly as it started. And it took me years to sort it out. How did I get there? What about this? What about that? Excuse me. So I'm not sure exactly how I was there initially. I believe it was somehow a double of me, or maybe it was me. I don't know. I don't have any recollection of a ship coming and picking me up and being with ETs or Greys. I have no memory of any of that. I can't speak to that. Still, here I was having these incredible experiences and then having to process it. So it was also very disturbing to come back. So there was a few different ways I get into that in my book of how I was able to be there with physicality. But eventually it turned out that I needed to be me while I was there. And I believe that it might be that the closest I can describe it, and this could be totally off, but the closest I could describe it is I had a clone of myself waiting for me there, that consciousness is very easy. There's no time and space when we're dealing with consciousness.
Okay.
So
Exactly.
I just left me sleeping in my bed and became Karen aboard the big ship.
Mm-hmm.
So there's all of that. And so after 3 months, it abruptly stopped. And then, wow, I had to somehow process this incredible experience. I noticed we're quickly running out of time. So I'm just wondering where you'd like me to go from here, Glenda.
Well, would you like to do any type of special blessing or anything like that? And then, the remaining time, if there's anything particular you want to talk about that we haven't had a chance to talk about. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, what I would like to do is to tell everybody that
Mhm.
I was taught that there are millions of us on earth today who are having these experiences. But generally, we agree to forget for a purpose. We're here to have an earth experience for soul evolution, not to mention it's a safety precaution if we don't remember. So a
Mhm.
lot of people who want to have contact, want to remember, you can, probably it will come in tiny little glimpses and in the memory of dreams and stuff. But I think it's important to realize that we're here for a very specific purpose. So there are other big ships. There might be, I have no idea how many, but probably a lot
Mhm.
all over the place. And then when you consider all the dimensional realities, but what happens is we wake up in the morning, we go, wow, that was quite a dream. We might tell a couple of friends and they might think we're being silly or whatever. And we eventually gaslight ourselves into
Mhm.
thinking that it was just a dream, it wasn't anything. But really, it was something. And so, millions of us. So, you may not think that you're making a difference here on earth, no matter how hard you try. You are making a difference, and you're spending time in a completely different reality, also making a difference there. So, this is not just something special that Karen Holton had happen. This is happening all the time. And what I recommend that people do is to think about their peripheral awareness. Let me explain what
Mhm.
I mean by that. When you're looking with your eyes at your screen, you're aware that you have peripheral vision. You may not be
Mhm.
using it, you may not be aware of it, but you can see quite a bit on either side if you
Mhm.
want to. And I actually recommend that as a nice walking meditation when you're out in the woods, to be
Mhm.
aware of the peripheral as well as what's in front. Well, peripheral awareness is very similar to that. So we're aware of our conscious mind and our thoughts. A lot of our thoughts are recurring thoughts. Sometimes they're new thoughts. Sometimes they're old thoughts. We got our thoughts, whatever they are, good, bad, and ugly, right?
Mhm.
Well, along the peripheral edges of that is where we're going to get these inklings, like little bubbles. Any of you out there who've been pregnant, when you start feeling the baby move within, it's like little bubbles. It's really
Yep.
quite cute,
Mhm.
right? You're
Mhm.
going to get these little bubbles in the peripheral of your conscious mind. And normally we're just too busy with what's straight ahead or what's
Mhm.
common to pay attention to that. So I highly recommend that people start to spend time in meditation. You don't even have to be very good at it. But how often have you had a little voice tell you something and you disregarded it and then you were sorry that you disregarded it? We've all had that happen.
Mhm.
That's the peripheral information coming in. So you start getting good at letting that come in and validating it. It's a real thing. It's an absolutely real thing. And it can be amazing. It can bring you so much joy that you just don't want to hang out at the neighbors drinking coffee and bitching about the other neighbors. You just don't want to do any of that anymore. It changes you forever, but in
Good.
a really, really positive way.
Mhm.
So I guess what I will do, rather than a blessing, I have this never ending fountain of love within myself. And it
Mm.
comes out through my heart chakra. And I'm now accessing it and sending it out to you, Glenda, for your healing and for your joy. And I'm sending it out. It's going to make me cry because tears seem to come with spiritual
And
movement.
it's coming too. So I
Okay.
can feel
And
it.
I'm sending that love out to everybody who watches your podcast, listens to your podcast, has anything to do with this episode or even any other. I'm sending out my love, and it's flowing through me faster than the speed of light, faster than anything. It's flowing out to all of you, and I want you to grab it and accept it into your heart and let it give you the little bit of lift that you need to get through your day, your week, your life. And so that I can do, and I'm doing that now. And for those of you who wish to receive, it's happening. It's happening. And you don't have to doubt it. And I think most of you will probably really, really like it. The other thing I want to do is invite people over to my channel.
Mhm.
Actually, I have quite a few channels, YouTube and Rumble and Odyssey and Telegram, and on it goes. And I'm also part of the Forbidden Knowledge Network, so I'm available on all audio podcasts. And I have that on the screen at Karen Holton TV. That's the name. I use the same name on everything. The audio podcasts are very likely the Quantum Guide Show with Karen Holton, because I started out in the network under that name. So I have a couple of different shows. One is on Wednesdays in the daytime called the Quantum Guide Show. And I interview people who are amazing and have gifts that they're offering the world. It could be everything and anything that's positive or that's helpful. Because like right now, we really, really need this. And I created
Mhm.
that podcast because that's what I needed when I was going through my awakening. That's what I needed, and I couldn't find it. So I created it now for everybody else to help them out with their journey.
Very.
And then Sundays, I have the Aliens and Angels podcast. And there I interview experiencers, Angelic, ET, or anything in that genre. I
Mhm.
have those people on Sunday, give them their own area. But more than that, I do my podcast live, and I have a wonderful live audience who joins us. They're very loving. And the
Mhm.
thing I want to stress is that I'm nobody's grand poobah. I'm not the spokesman for ET or anything like that. I'm just talking about my experiences.
Mhm.
And anyone that comes and joins us in the live chat, or anybody who comes in and watches my videos, they get to keep their own intuition, their own feelings, their own beliefs. Nobody has to believe what I believe. That's totally okay. Even if you get my book, you don't have to believe it's real thing. I think
Mhm.
you'd find it really entertaining and inspiring, but you don't have to believe it, because you see, your experience, everybody out there, your experiences are sacred and they're yours and they're
Mhm.
important. So hang on to them. So we have this lovely chat. I've got lovely moderators who make sure that everybody gets heard and gets validated. And that
Mhm.
again is something. Basically, I just created everything I wished I'd had
Right.
for tools to help and assist. And then, of course, I do many visits to other people's channels, like yours, Glenda. Thank
Mhm.
you so
Thank
much for
you for
having
being.
me. It's been a real joy to be here and to speak out and to share, because I want people to know there's a whole lot of crap going on when out there in the world. I don't
Mhm.
even know how much of it's real, but just in case it's real, oh my God, you need safe places to go, guys, where you
Excellent.
can get soothed. And eventually, if you don't do it already, you learn to bring forth your own wellspring. And
Mhm.
that gives you what I call the waters of life. It's very satisfying. It's very, basically, there are many podcasters out there who are serving up the spiritual food that's needed in these end times or dark times, depending on how you want to look at it. So there's that. I also have a website, KarenHoltonHealthCoach.com. It's become more of a spiritual kind of practical place rather than health. But health is a broad category. It's not just what you eat and how much exercise you get. It's so much more. And
Exactly.
I think when we get validated, it's extremely healing, to be validated. And I think I mentioned everything. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope I didn't say too much.
No, absolutely not, Karen. Truly appreciate having you here and being so candid and open because I know that, even if we write books, it's different writing it, but
Mm-hmm.
talking about it brings it all up to right in front of you again.
Mm-hmm.
So I do thank you for that. And I thank you because you have hit a lot of points that a lot of people do not realize that they're also going through it. Or
Mm-hmm.
they may be going through it, but like like you, when you were told younger state, don't say that because they're gonna think you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
People still keep it quiet. When I was growing up, you didn't talk to anybody but my mother and my grandmother about whatever I was experiencing because people would think you're crazy and you would be put away. And,
Mm-hmm.
and we would never see you again. Not the same one, because once you're in those asylums, the old ones, you never came out the same. You came out not
Yeah.
a ghost of a shell of who you were.
Who you were.
Right.
I actually get into that in my book too. That
Mm.
people say, "Well, how come there hasn't been more people talking about ET contact?" Well, it's because they were all institutionalized, drugged,
Yep.
and had bits of their brain pulled out. And
Yep.
now it's kind of disturbing that in the United States and Canada, they now want to bring back the old style asylums.
Yes.
So I don't know what to say about that.
I think that we made it this far. That I think it's time to let go of those old ways
Yes,
and be open to new avenues.
that's
New
right.
avenues.
That's
Well,
right.
thank you very much. And as always, to my audience, remember to follow and support our guests because they're all here to help you. You may not agree with them, you may not resonate with them, but there is someone who will touch you. Their story will resonate with you, and you will feel at home and unsafe. And to all, love you. Bye.